Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're going to take you behind the scenes of the fiancé visa process.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, we'll be looking at the legal complexities and the potential for fraud accusations and why this topic is so much more than just a love story.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area, and there are a lot of surprising twists and turns.
For sure.
We'll be unpacking what the immigration authorities look for and the red flags that can trigger suspicion
Right.
and the serious consequences if things go wrong.
It's a good reminder that something as personal as marriage can become incredibly complicated when you bring in international borders and legal systems.
Absolutely. And it touches on so many broader themes, like immigration trends,
Oh, yeah.
cultural differences, and even the economics of relationships.
I was reading through the source material, and I was surprised to learn that fiancé visa fraud is considered more prevalent than marriage-based green card fraud.
Hmm.
Why is that? It seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, it might seem that way at first, but if you think about it, a fiancé visa offers a faster track to entering the U.S.
Oh,
There's a sense of urgency built into the process,
right.
which can be appealing to those who might not want to wait for the longer processing times associated with a marriage-based green card.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's all about timing.
It is, and let's be honest, fabricating an engagement is a lot easier than faking an entire marriage history,
Yeah.
complete with documentation and convincing backstories.
Right. Yeah.
And if things don't work out, it's much simpler to just not get married than to go through a divorce.
So it's almost like a calculated risk for some people.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the stakes? What happens if someone is accused of fiancé visa fraud?
The penalties are serious. We're
Yeah.
talking deportation,
Wow.
bans from re-entering the U.S., and in some cases, even criminal charges for the American citizen involved.
Really?
Yeah, it's not just a matter of a visa denial.
Wow.
It can have serious and lasting repercussions on people's lives.
That's definitely a strong deterrent. What are immigration authorities looking for? What are the red flags?
There are a number of factors that can raise suspicion, and some of them might surprise you.
Okay.
For example, the applicant's home country, unfortunately, plays a role.
Really?
Countries with historically higher rates of immigration fraud
I
tend to
thought.
face increased scrutiny.
So where someone is from can actually impact their chances of getting a fiancé visa approved.
It's a complex issue. It doesn't mean that everyone from those countries is attempting fraud,
Right.
but applications from those places might be subject to closer inspection,
Okay.
which highlights the inherent biases and complexities within the immigration system.
It sounds like they're trying to balance protecting the system from fraud while also trying to be fair to individual applicants.
It's a delicate balancing act, and it's one that's constantly being evaluated and debated.
Aside from country of origin, what are some other red flags that immigration officials look for?
Well, things like financial difficulties on the American partner's side can be a concern.
Hmm.
It's not about judging people's economic situations,
Right.
but rather assessing whether the American partner has the means to support their fiancé, which is a legal requirement of the sponsorship process.
That makes sense. It's all about ensuring that the incoming fiancé won't become a financial burden on the state.
Exactly. And large age gaps between the couple can also raise eyebrows.
Okay.
Again, this isn't about imposing societal norms on relationships,
Right.
but rather recognizing that large age disparities can sometimes be indicative of ulterior motives.
I see what you mean. It's not about judging the love itself, but rather looking at the context and considering the potential for exploitation.
Precisely, other factors that can trigger scrutiny include a lack of common language between the couple,
Okay.
differing religions, and significant differences in education level.
So it seems like they're looking for a sense of shared experience,
Yeah.
a foundation on which to build a life together.
That's a good way to put it. And it's not just about the, hard facts either.
Oh.
The way a couple presents their relationship can also make a difference.
What do you mean by that?
For example, if the couple hasn't told their families about the engagement, or if the American partner has sponsored someone for a fiancé or marriage visa before,
Okay.
those things can raise questions.
Interesting.
It's all about understanding the dynamics of the relationship
Right.
and looking for any inconsistencies or red flags that might suggest something isn't quite right.
It sounds like building a strong and credible case is essential.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about declaring your love. It's about providing concrete evidence to support your claim of a genuine relationship.
Exactly. And the devil is often in the details.
What kind of details?
Well, for instance, if the evidence the couple provides feels rushed or generic,
Okay.
like if all their photos are from the same day,
Right.
or their emails and letters sound overly formal or impersonal,
Yeah.
it's about showcasing a real lived-in relationship, not just ticking boxes on a checklist.
Yeah. So it's about finding that balance between presenting a compelling case while also remaining authentic and true to your relationship.
Exactly.
That must be tricky.
It can be, and that's why seeking legal help is so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about paperwork, it's about understanding the nuances of the process
Right.
and building a case that reflects the genuine connection between the couple.
It sounds like having an experienced guide can make all the difference in navigating this complex landscape.
Absolutely.
But beyond the legal aspects, I'm curious about the human element of all of this. It's a bit disheartening to think that genuine couples might be unfairly scrutinized because of factors that are often beyond their control.
It's a valid concern behind all the legal jargon and bureaucratic procedures.
Right.
There are real people with real emotions and aspirations, and the process can take a toll on even the strongest relationships.
It makes you wonder how many couples actually make it through this process, unscathed.
Yeah.
I imagine it can put a huge strain on a relationship.
It's true. The emotional toll is often overlooked.
Yeah.
Imagine dealing with all the bureaucratic hurdles and the financial stress and cultural differences,
Yeah.
and then the constant fear of separation. That's a lot for any couple to handle.
Yeah. I remember reading a comment from someone online who went through the fiancé visa process. And they said it felt like they were constantly under a microscope, like every aspect of their relationship was being judged and dissected.
It's a common sentiment, and then there's the added pressure of public perception,
Yeah.
dealing with the skepticism from friends and family, or even strangers who might question the motives behind the relationship.
Yeah.
It can be incredibly isolating.
Having to constantly defend your love and prove your sincerity, that must be exhausting.
It can create a sense of us against the world mentality,
Yeah.
which can be both bonding and incredibly stressful.
So what advice would you give to couples navigating this process? How can they protect their relationship amidst all this stress and scrutiny?
Communication is key. Being open and honest with each other about your fears and frustrations and expectations. It can make a world of difference. It's also crucial to have a strong support system outside the relationship.
Okay.
Friends, family, or even a therapist who can offer a listening ear and objective perspective.
It sounds like self-care is essential in this situation.
Absolutely. Taking time for yourselves, doing things you enjoy together,
Right.
and remembering why you fell in love in the first place
Yes.
can help maintain that emotional connection amidst all the chaos.
It's easy to get bogged down in the logistics and lose sight of the bigger picture.
It is, and that's why it's so important to remember that behind every application, there are real people with real emotions and dreams.
Speaking of dreams, I'm curious about the motivations behind choosing the fiancé visa route. Why would a couple opt for this path over other immigration options?
Well, for many couples, it's the most direct path to being together in the U.S. It's designed specifically for couples who want to get married in the U.S.
Right.
and then have the foreign fiancé adjust their status to permanent resident.
Okay.
It allows them to start their lives together sooner rather than later.
So it's a way to expedite the process of being together while still adhering to the legal requirements.
Exactly. And for some couples, it might be a matter of practicality.
Okay.
Perhaps the foreign fiancé can't obtain a visitor visa to even come to the U.S. for the wedding.
Right.
Or maybe they need to work in the U.S. to support themselves while waiting for their green card application to be processed.
Right.
The fiancé visa allows them to do both.
So it's not always just a romantic choice. It's often a practical one as well.
Right. And it's important to remember that every couple's situation is unique.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer to the question of why someone would choose a fiancé visa.
It's a reminder that we shouldn't make assumptions about people's motivations.
Right.
Or judge their choices without understanding their individual circumstances.
I agree. It's easy to get caught up in the legal technicalities.
Yeah.
And forget the human stories behind these applications.
Thinking about the bigger picture, how do fiancé visas fit into the overall landscape of immigration trends and policies in the U.S.?
It's a complex question. Fiancé visas represent a relatively small
Okay.
but significant portion of immigration to the U.S. They reflect the increasingly globalized nature of relationships and the desire of couples from different countries to build lives together.
But they also exist within a system that is often criticized for being overly bureaucratic, restrictive, and even discriminatory at times.
You're absolutely right. The fiancé visa process, like many aspects of the U.S. immigration system,
Right?
is subject to political winds and shifting priorities.
So it's not just about navigating the legal requirements. It's also about navigating a constantly evolving political landscape,
Exactly.
which can be incredibly challenging for couples who are just trying to be together.
Exactly. And that's why staying informed and seeking expert legal guidance is crucial.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the complexities of this issue. I had no idea how much went into it.
It's a topic that often gets oversimplified or sensationalized in the media.
Yeah.
But as we've seen, it's a nuanced issue with real human stories and consequences.
It's a powerful reminder that behind every legal case, every statistic, there are individuals whose lives are being shaped by these policies and processes.
I couldn't agree more. It's about recognizing the human element within the legal framework.
Before we wrap up our discussion on fiancé visas, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the future holds for this process.
Okay.
What trends are you seeing and what challenges do you anticipate?
One trend that's becoming increasingly apparent is the heightened focus on vetting and security measures.
What does that look like in practical terms?
It means more scrutiny of applications, longer processing times, and potentially more requests for evidence. Basically a higher bar for approval.
So is it going to become even more difficult to obtain a fiancé visa?
It's possible the political climate surrounding immigration is constantly shifting, and that inevitably impacts the fiancé visa process.
And what role is technology playing in all of this? How is it changing the way these visas are processed and investigated?
Technology is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's being used to streamline certain aspects of the application process, making it more convenient for couples. But on the other hand, it's also enabling increased scrutiny and surveillance.
Can you give us some concrete examples of how technology is being used in both ways?
Sure. For instance, online portals and electronic filing systems are making it easier for couples to submit their applications and track their progress. But at the same time, social media is now a routine part of the vetting process.
Wow.
Immigration officials are using sophisticated tools to analyze online activity, looking for inconsistencies or red flags that might indicate fraud.
So that Facebook official status we talked about earlier is even more important now.
Absolutely. And it's not just Facebook. They're looking at all forms of online communication, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, you name it.
It sounds like privacy is becoming a major concern in this context.
It is. There are legitimate concerns about the extent to which the government is accessing and analyzing personal data in the name of immigration enforcement.
It's a tricky balance between national security and individual privacy.
Exactly. And it's a debate that's only going to intensify in the years to come. We need to carefully consider the ethical and practical implications of these technological advancements as they relate to the fiancé visa process and immigration as a whole.
It's a reminder that these aren't just abstract legal issues. They have real-world consequences for individuals and families.
I agree. And it's important to approach these conversations with sensitivity and a recognition of the human impact of these policies and procedures.
Before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier, the emotional toll of this process. It's clear that applying for a fiancé visa can be incredibly stressful for couples. What advice would you give to those who are feeling overwhelmed or discouraged?
First and foremost, remember that you're not alone in this. Many couples go through similar challenges and anxieties during the fiancé visa process. Don't be afraid to seek support from friends, family, or a therapist. It can make a world of difference to have someone to talk to who understands what you're going through.
And what about practical tips for managing the stress?
Staying organized and creating a timeline can help reduce anxiety. Breaking down the process into smaller, manageable steps can make it feel less daunting.
That makes sense. It's easy to feel paralyzed when faced with a mountain of paperwork and deadlines.
Exactly. And remember to celebrate the small victories along the way. Each step completed is a step closer to being together.
And don't forget to prioritize your relationship amidst all the chaos.
Absolutely. Make time for each other, nurture your connection, and remind yourselves why you're going through all of this in the first place.
It's easy to let the stress consume you, but it's important to hold on to that love and commitment.
Yeah, it's so easy to get lost in all the the logistics and the paperwork and stuff.
Right.
That we forget that it's about two people who are, in love.
Exactly.
And want to be together.
At the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Right.
And that's what couples really need to hold on to.
For sure.
Especially when things get tough.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into fiancé visas,
okay,
what are the key takeaways? What should our listeners remember from our conversation?
I think the most important takeaway is that fiancé visas are more than just a love story.
Right.
They exist within a complex legal framework with high stakes and potential pitfalls.
It's not something to take lightly?
Except being informed is crucial.
Okay.
Understand the requirements, be aware of the red flags that can trigger investigations, and know the consequences of fraud accusations.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to immigration law. I couldn't agree more, and don't underestimate the emotional toll this process can take on a relationship.
Yeah.
Be prepared for a roller coaster of emotions, and remember that open communication, self-care, and a strong support system are essential for navigating the stress and uncertainty.
And if things get complicated, don't hesitate to seek professional help.
Absolutely. A qualified immigration attorney can be invaluable in guiding you through the legal complexities, anticipating potential challenges, and advocating for your best interest. It's an investment in your future together.
I love that analogy, investing in your future together.
Yeah.
That's great.
And finally, remember that every couple's journey is unique.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to this process, so be flexible, be adaptable, be patient, and most importantly, don't lose sight of the love that brought you together in the first place.
This deep dive has been truly eye-opening. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of the, complexities and nuances of fiancé visas.
It's a topic that deserves more attention and understanding than it often receives.
Well said. And for our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you valuable insights into this fascinating, sometimes challenging process.
Yes.
What stands out to you from all this? What further questions do you have? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those questions that matter.